Good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Beatty. I am the founder of Keep Your Stride. I'm also a project manager, project and program manager. And I just wanted to launch a new series of what we're calling Calm in the Chaos. And this is just a mid month wellness check where we just come together and just fellow project management professionals just check in. How are you doing? That's a question that's not asked enough as we navigate deadlines and expectations and personalities. And I wanted to bring in a professional to this wellness conversation, Valerie Carmel Dorsonville, and let her also give her professional insight to ways that we can navigate our mental wellness in the project management industry. So, Valerie, please share a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for inviting me. Always love the opportunity for us to connect and talk more and more about an area that we both really care about, which is mental health and mental wellness overall. So, thank you so much for inviting me tonight. A little bit about me: I am a licensed clinical social worker. And I live in Florida, but I have multiple licenses in other states, including California and Nevada. I've been a therapist for about 20 years, and I run a completely virtual mental health practice that provides individual counseling, training, as well as speaking opportunities in terms of working with groups and different organizations.
Awesome. So, Val, in your experience, what makes you mental health unique in regards to challenges for project managers that encounter any type of mental wellness concerns compared to other professionals?
As it relates to project management specifically, one of the things that I've really learned and noticed is that the industry in and of itself is a little bit makes the complicated aspect that impacts their mental wellness. So when we try to maybe compare that to other industries, such as maybe education, or if you work in healthcare, you're usually pretty rooted inside of your particular teams, right? The third grade team works together, the oncology team works together, the mother baby unit kind of works together. But project managers are in a are automatically kind of set up in a role where they have a mix of leadership, lots of coordination, and a lot of accountability that they're in charge of for people who are on multiple different teams simultaneously. So just that piece in and of itself tends to create a lot of chaos, complicated situations regarding timelines, people's work styles, and often their work backgrounds are all very different. So the project manager is really embedded in trying to kind of wrangle cats, for a lack of a better for a lack of a better term, of getting multiple people who are on different wavelengths all together and moving in the same step. That in and of itself makes it very challenging.
It's so true. That is an analogy that we often see in the industry. It's like herding cats. We do manage different personalities, and thank you for that focus because I sometimes think as project management professionals, we might not even realize we're navigating like a mental challenge, right? We might not even make the connection as like, this is what we do, and we're exhausted, you know? So I think it's helpful that we call a thing a thing. And thank you for calling it what it really is. So, in that flow, can you share some examples or patterns of behaviors in regards to how we should navigate burnout? Because it bubbles up, right? Burnout
Mhm.
bubbles up oftentimes, and we don't even realize we're burnout till we're snapping at people, or our attention span is just not there. So yes, give us some patterns and behaviors.
So one of the biggest challenges that I think it can make identifying burnout difficult is that, to your point, it creeps up. So it isn't like Monday, everything was perfect, and all of a sudden on Tuesday, you're falling apart. Not typically the approach. It happens gradually. And ultimately, what happens is that our window of capacity begins to shrink. So maybe we were capable of kind of multitasking more consistently, handling multiple calls, addressing multiple issues that are happening, and they seem to be, while challenging, easier for you to manage. But over time, to your point, many of those same things feel much more difficult to try to achieve. So we're talking about increase in irritability, more difficulty with decision fatigue, where you're noticing that it takes you longer to make decisions, and there's a sense of indecisiveness that comes about. Concentration is a huge red flag that many of my patients are reporting, and ultimately just an overall sense of a lack of satisfaction in their career. Something that maybe this was the job that you had really wanted, the position you had really wanted, you strived for, worked for, and and you were really excited once you got into it. But over time, it's kind of lost a little bit of its luster, and you can't really figure out why. Those are some of the most consistent signs that I see when people are experiencing burnout.
Can we discuss this decision fatigue a bit more? And what does that
Absolutely.
look like?
So, for one thing, project managers are often in the position of kind of putting out fires, right? So you have multiple people coming to you with lots of information that you really have to be very quick to not just analyze the information, but also come up with a strategy and a solution very quickly. And so when that happens over time, what what I notice my patients complain a lot about is that by the end of the day, they don't want to make any decisions. Something as simple as, do I want to stop at Trader Joe's or do I want to go through a drive-through, can leave them almost stuck, like can't decide what to do next. And ultimately, they just give up and usually just go home and just get into bed. So that is oftentimes a red flag that I will note when I'm doing an assessment with patients is like, when you have to make a decision, do you find yourself kind of sitting there almost like stuck in this clay and can't kind of move? Or what patients will also report is this sense of like elevated state during the day while they're at work, but the moment they get home, they are almost in a state of emotional collapse. So vegging out on TV, just lounging around, sometimes staring just into space, not really thinking about anything at all. Those are consistent signs that we are in a state of burnout.
I feel a little bit seen, just a little, a smidget,
Just a smidge.
smidge. Because can burnout happen? Is burnout an incremental experience? Is it a crescendo? Is it, it takes a little pop in, pop out? Like, what are durations applied to burnout?
That's a pretty individualized kind of question because
Okay.
everybody's approach to work is very different, right? So, I'll use myself as an example. I'm the kind of person that when I jump into something, it is full steam ahead, firing on all cylinders, and I'm go, go, go. I know because I've done this long enough that I probably have about a good maybe 10 weeks of straight high intensity of work. But the closer I get to that 10 weeks, the more I know to anticipate that I'm going to start struggling. So things like I'm going to get clumsier, I'm not going to be able to, I'll get like my mind will go blank in the middle of a thought process and then I can't remember what I was just thinking about to even try to get back to it. Um, and what I've learned is that that is kind of like the cycle in which I work. Ultimately, I realized, well, in the long term, that doesn't work for you, right? Because ultimately, I'm not working only 3 months out of the year, I'm working year round. And so I had to change my approach in the way that I set up working. So that way, there is a lot more flexibility and time built in the previous several weeks that allows me downtime and time to recover so that by the time I do get to the end of the 10 weeks, I'm not almost at a state of collapse. and then I'm going to, 2 or 3 weeks where I can't do anything, and then I'm not effective for anyone. So it really ultimately depends on your prior level of functioning, right? So if you are just coming out of a maybe difficult personal situation, well, automatically coming back into work, your window of capacity is a lot less,
Mhm.
right? Because maybe you're not rested, maybe you've been dealing with caring for a loved one. So everybody's level of capacity not only is different, but our levels of capacity changes based off of what's going on in our life. So if you're not very in tune with how you're feeling and what your capacity is, you can inadvertently set yourself up for failure.
Yeah. That's one that whoever I know I have to sit and process. I have to probably catch the replay to really process all of that just now. I'm like, okay, ma'am, I hear you. So with that said, to piggyback on that,
Mhm.
how can project managers create an insulated experience day in, day out in a way to protect their mental health?
This is going to sound very redundant, but it is absolutely the correct way to go about it. You have to create a lifestyle and a system that supports your mental wellness year round. Oftentimes I find that people will kind of delay their self-care and management of their mental wellness because maybe they have deadlines and things are a little bit more tight, and so we're going to kind of delay some of those things. But the reality is that during periods of increased stress, you actually need more self-care, not less of it. So if you can anticipate the periods of time where you recognize there are going to be maybe quarterly reports or deliverables are due, that's actually the period of time where you need to build in a little bit more cushion to allow you time to decompress. So things related to setting appropriate boundaries. I know that's a big thing for my people in project management because oftentimes there's this sense of constantly having to be on and available to all the members of your team, but ultimately not having those firm boundaries leads to burnout even faster. Making sure that you're creating time to decompress and have a uninterrupted period of streaming thought. That is probably one of the most underrated experiences that I think people forget that they need because we have so many things going on. We're so frequently accessible to so many people in multiple ways. We have our telephones, we have Slack, we have Teams, we have, this, that, and the third that we're constantly managing all the. So being able to set some time, whether it be at the beginning of your day, whether it be at the end of your day, whether it be during lunch, whatever, to take 5, 10 minutes of just think. Don't answer phones, don't respond to anybody. And the other thing is schedule that time in. Just telling yourself that you're going to do it is probably not going to happen. You need to add it onto your calendar the same way that you would any other meeting. Set it up as a do not disturb. Make sure your other team members know and really create boundaries around that time so you can check in with yourself and make sure that you're doing things effectively. The other one, delegate. You don't need to do everything by yourself. Unnecessary. There are enough tools, there are enough people available to you that you can really begin to be intentional about what work you can either shift to somebody else, leverage technology or AI to assist you with so that you can work solely in your, zone of genius and not burn yourself out with other things that are just kind of sucking up your time. And then the last thing, celebrate your wins. One of the things that I'm really big about for a lot of my patients is really creating something called a win wall, where they consistently write down their wins, small, medium, large. It doesn't matter. Because ultimately, one of the challenges is that you will get frustrated or hit a wall at some point, and you will forget all of the things you've been able to achieve and been able to do. So by creating a space where you can highlight your wins, you actively are not just providing yourself with some positive reinforcement, and a great little bit of an ego boost, but also reminding yourself that you're capable of resiliency and overcoming challenges. So that win wall is another thing I really encourage my patients to do as well.
Yes, you are a huge wind wall advocate. Did you write a book about the wind wall?
I did create a an ebook slash workbook on my website that's available for people to be able to purchase and download. And it is such a great way of being able to not just do for you individually, but also as a team. So if you're working with multiple people, that is also a great way that you can put together like a virtual win wall where everybody can highlight their wins and highlight the impact that all of the other team members are adding to your success.
I like that. So, what additional advice? Because you've given some amazing gems and nuggets and all the things. So, what advice would you give PMs that are struggling to prioritize their wellness because they feel responsible for their team's psychological safety?
Ooh, okay. That's a really great question. And I actually get that really because I get that situation quite a bit with with several of my patients. Uh, and one of the things I usually ask them is, how good are you going to be to somebody else in building them up when you're falling apart? The two don't go together. So if you're going to try to be in a position to support and uplift other people, that has to start with you. I know everybody has heard the, can't pour from an empty cup kind of scenario. And I don't think it's necessarily the best advice because it kind of creates the setup of like depletion and then having to refill yourself. The goal is to stay full. That way you can just give everybody overflow and that way nobody is in a deficit. So being intentional about managing your mental wellness is your way of remaining full. It allows you to be in the best state of mind, the best level of emotional intelligence, so that you can effectively address not just issues, but also prioritize things effectively, problem solve, and ultimately be present for the people that you are really support. Your role is really to support.
So, what does staying full look like? What are optics to staying full?
That includes better work life balance, prioritizing healthy relationships, making sure you are taking care of your physical health. Um, a lot of our mental health is really dependent on how much sleep we're getting, how much our nutrition, how much good nutrition we're putting into our bodies, and whether or not we're moving. So if you are not moving your body, not taking care of yourself, automatically that's going to really put your mental health at risk. In addition to that, doing things that you actually enjoy, making time for hobbies and things that bring you life, things that have nothing to do with work, which is quite interesting because most people think that the solution to working better is going to be solely centered around work. But you will have a much better view of your role and what you bring to the table when you are actually feeling more like a well rounded individual, like a person outside of work. Like you are a person who works. You are not a you're not a person who is designed to just work. There are lots of other elements included in who we are as an individual. And if you create work to be the sole focus of everything that you're going to do, that is going to be a recipe for burnout.
I feel like all the different things you shared is its own downloadable worksheet. I'm like, okay, did I do this today? Like to find your perfect storm, I like to say work life harmony. Um,
Mhm.
just like, okay, what does that look like? What does that feel like? That's easy to maintain. I think sleep is a thing, right? Is a whole thing. I'm speaking for
Absolutely.
myself. Sleep is a thing that I constantly navigate getting enough of. I like to sleep with my Apple Watch on to see
Mhm.
exactly how many hours I get. And I'm always clutching pearls when I see how many actual hours of sleep I actually get. And it's like, okay, I need to spend more time during the day allowing my mind to relax. So by the time I get to sleep, my body can really go into that deep core sleep.
I I think people really underestimate the importance of their sleep, right? And one of the things that people will say when they start to experience a level of burnout is that they'll fall asleep fine, usually because they're just in a state of collapse, right? Because they've spent so much of their day elevated. But what they'll find is that they'll wake up in the middle of the night and immediately, like, their brain turns on. And the analogy that I typically will use is like, imagine what it feels like to now have 6 full lanes of traffic empty. That's going to make it very, very easy for all kinds of things to just come sliding down the highway when there's finally no distractions, such as our phone and television and social media and all these other things that are going to be impeding the flow of those thoughts. So creating time earlier in the day where you're able to, like, do a brain dump and get all of those things out on a piece of paper. The next thing to do, you need a cognitive strategy, which brain dump is, but pair it with a physical one. Do some stretching, do some yoga, like, do progressive muscle relaxation. Do something that allows both your brain and your body to relax, and that will improve your ability to sleep. Poor sleep is linked to higher reactivity levels and higher anxiety, as well as depressive symptoms. So you really are doing yourself a great disservice if you are not paying attention to how well you're sleeping.
Okay, I'm going back to my corner.
I mean, sleep is a challenge. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's also a challenge for me. Like, I suffer from, intermittent insomnia sometimes. And when I notice that I'm having that issue, I'm usually like, okay, what have I not been doing? Right. And I think this is where it kind of goes back to identifying what are the things that allows you to function at your best. Everybody's capacity levels are different. Everybody, what that mix of what we all need to be in our bag, so to speak, is different. And it's going to be different in different seasons of your life. So you have to be very in tune with what works for you, right? Paying
Oh,
attention to the places and conversations and things that are impacting you negatively.
okay, so I know that we're going to be doing this wellness check for a few months. I get that. But as we're entering holiday season, right? We're
Hmm.
entering
Hmm.
holiday season and it's the end of quarter four. So, what are some tools, some resources, some affirmations, some thoughts that we should, as project managers, remember as we're navigating personalities? Empathy, I think, is so crucial at any given time, but definitely this time of the year, right? Because you never
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
what people are dealing with when it comes to family, loved ones, things of that nature. What it, what should we keep in mind? Because I feel like you'll give us the unexpected answer or the expected answer that we just need a reminder of.
Um, well, the first one is, just because a person's reaction is directed towards you, that doesn't mean that their reaction is about you. So don't personalize everything. Somebody is a little bit short in a meeting, or maybe you read something and you kind of get this tone, extend some grace, because it ultimately might not have anything to do with you. The holidays are really complicated for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, right? Whether it's because of losses, whether it's because of financial strain, whether it's because of um, family conflict. Like, a lot of people don't share the depth of what they are facing. And so extending a little bit of grace and not personalizing people's responses, I think, is really important. And the next part of that is check in with yourself more frequently. Like, one of the first homework assignment that every patient of mine does is to track their mood. First homework assignment, fresh out the gate. Track your mood over the course of over the course of a week to 2 weeks. Write down two pieces of information. One, some quantitative data, a number from 1 to 10. One being, either you're totally relaxed and calm, and 10, like you on the ceiling, right?
Mhm.
Engage how you're feeling every single day and write down that one number and then incorporate some qualitative data as to what contributed to that. Every day, do that for the next 2 weeks, and then go back and look at it. I guarantee you're going to notice some trends, either whether it be trends related to what has consistent things that lead to you feeling consistently good and calm and happy, and the things that are creating a lot of stress and undesirable emotions for you as well. And that's where you start. You have to notice the trends first before you start putting together a solution, right? Which is probably very project management based, right? Doing that assessment, doing that analysis, and then coming up with a solution based off of the information that you've put together.
Yeah, lessons learned, lessons learned. They show up in different ways. Yeah, I appreciate that. So, what is something that you would want any project manager or any project management professional, because project management is more than just a project manager, it applies to
Mhm.
different positions. So, what would you recommend? What's one piece of advice you would want them to take away to hold for them to carry with them until our next mid month check in?
Give themselves some grace. Like, we often can extend grace so much easier than we can give it to ourselves, and recognize that you're doing the best that you got. Like, and every day is not going to be the same. So some days, maybe you're at 90%. Other days, maybe you're at 70. And that might just have to be where you're at. So practice some more acceptance for yourself and extend a little bit more grace so that you're not spending so much of your life at war with yourself. We already have to fight so many battles externally. Don't create a new one on the inside. It's unnecessary.
That's a whole word. That's a whole word. Because we can create so many wars and battles in our mind that is not
Mhm.
ours to fight. We just need to let be the light we're meant to be consistent in what we do as far as leading, managing all the things. So, yeah, I can totally get that one. Well, thank you. Do you have any parting thoughts?
Um, I think it's important for while we talk a lot about the industry and organizations, and trust me, they can definitely do some things better to kind of create a better environment that is conducive to really focusing on your mental wellness, and encouraging mental wellness within their teams and within their employees. But at the end of the day, your wellness is your responsibility. So it is important to take that privilege and power that you do have seriously. Don't wait for somebody else to come along and remind you that, hey, you have 200 some odd hours of PTO that you haven't utilized. No, keep track of that. Take the time, do what you need to do. The place will still be standing when you get back. So prioritize your mental wellness because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Facts. Well, thank you. Thank you, Val, for your time. I hope anyone that watches the replay of this conversation or interview that you got a nugget of reminder that you're worthy of your own time and investment for you to have peace of mind in what you do because you're doing an awesome job at what you do as a project management professional. And this life is to be enjoyed, and you're meant to enjoy the fruits of your labor of what you do. So let's keep working on managing that to where you can enjoy your life in all ways. So thank you so much. Until next month, I wish you a wellness check every day that serves you well.